My name is Prem, and this is Mike. We're going to talk a little bit about what we want to do is we just want to talk about homelessness, talk about some of the stereotypes that people have. Actually, your comment that you had made in the front here about homeless people sometimes get homeless because they didn't take care of what they needed to take care of. I think in many cases that might be true, but in some cases it's not, and we're going to just talk about a couple examples of that. So what I want to do is I'm going to have Mike come up here. He's going to tell you a little bit about himself. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. We're going to tell you a couple stories of some guys that we met and talked to, and we'll go from there.
My name's Mike. I don't like being behind this podium, but we had some friends and I had this idea, and at the time it seemed like a really novel idea. Looking back, it seems really simple. But what we did was we borrowed a grill, and we got some food together, whatever we could get together, and we went down to a park in Cass Corridor, and just started grilling and invited whoever we found, and just told them to invite their friends. And going into it, we thought. Going into it, I thought I thought all of them were like, all the addicts, all, whatever, all their fault basically. And I kind of went into it thinking that like I'm gonna help them. They need my help, that kind of mentality. And for me, it was very different than I expected. Some of them had some really great advice, and some of them definitely have some drug problems. And some of them definitely are crazy. And some of them are very well educated. But we started doing these barbecues with the homeless. It started out just some friends and I, like 10, 12 of us, and we just started doing it once a month, so that's what we could do. And then it just kind of took off from there, and more people found out about what we were doing and started to come with us, and pretty soon there was groups of people and some churches and stuff that were coming down, and now it's all right. And now it's happening every Saturday at 1 o'clock. We're having a barbecue with them.
So for me, I'm a professional photographer, and my wife and I have been really blessed with a great business, and we just really felt a calling in our heart to just one day, we just felt a calling to start doing something for the homeless folks, and I had no idea what to do, where to start. I mean, when you want to help homeless people, what do? You can't, you just go down to Detroit somewhere and find homeless people and start talking to them. I mean, it was a pretty daunting task, and we really didn't know what to do or where to start. And I started talking to some people at my church. They told me about what Mike was doing, and I talked to Mike and told him, I said, I don't really know what I'm supposed to do or why I'm supposed to do it, but I really feel called to go down with you and just start talking to some of the folks down there. And so a few times my wife and I have gone down to Detroit. We photographed some of the homeless folks, which are some of the pictures up on the screen, and we just talked to them and interviewed them and just kind of learned about how they got where they are, what kind of struggles they have in their life, and things like that. And it was really, really eye-opening for me, because I had a lot of stereotypes of what I thought homeless people were. And like Mike said, there definitely are some that have drug issues and alcohol issues, and some of them have mental issues as well. But there really are some people that life's just really brought them down, and they're struggling to get out of it. So what we're going to do before we do anything else, I'm going to show you guys a video. And the video is something that we had put together with a videographer who's a friend of mine that came down with us.
It starts with
one thing, I don't know why. It doesn't even matter how hard you try. Keep that in mind. I designed this rhyme to explain in due time.
My name is Terry. I've been down here since '78. Life has become a bigger challenge for me, because now I'm homeless, and these streets down here, once you get in these streets, it becomes tremendously hard, because there's nothing here. Everything here is pulling you backwards.
I tried so hard and got so far, but in the end, it doesn't
established. Everybody down here call me Pony. My home is any place I can stay at. On Garfield in Woodward, it was it's a abandoned building there. And basically, I go there and sleep. And I was raised by my grandparents, you know, on Wyoming China, middle-class neighborhood, and I never would predict that my life would turn out like this. I went to school, you know, I never did know or knew what dirty clothes was, smelly socks, being hungry, you know. But I know the feeling now. I'm sick of this lifestyle, you know. And like I say, you know, every night, you know, I ask God, you know, to help.
And a lot of these people, they carry their life around in bags, so it's hard for them to get something going. And it's what y'all guys come down and feed them and give them, it's what they have. That's all we have down here. It's what y'all bring us.
I've put my trust in you, pushed as far as I can go. For all this, there's only one thing you should know. I tried.
What a lot of people don't understand is people is not down here, you know, because they want to. They're down here because they stuck.
Everybody down here is not bad people. They just in there. They caught up in this invisible spider web. Because it's there, you just can't see it. You know, but when you get stuck in it, you know, it's hard to get loose.
So that video was shot down at the barbecues that Mike's been hosting, and I gotta say, I'm the one that's gonna be up here that's gonna be talking a lot, but Mike is the guy that actually does stuff. I mean, he's down there, you know, almost every weekend. He's not organizing these barbecues for the homeless, he's organizing them with the homeless, and he sits down regularly, looking people eye to eye, talking to them, eating with them, hanging out with them. And he's getting to know them, and that's a really big deal. I think one of the things that happens with people on the street is they don't get treated like people, and it's really difficult. And the thing is, again, a lot of them really are not bad people. They're just people that have been stuck in a rut. The guy up on the screen that we're going to talk about, his name is Calvin, and interviewing Calvin was a very, very eye-opening experience for me. Calvin's actually, I mean, he's just an ordinary guy. He's got a very gentle demeanor and a really warm smile, and he's just got a very compelling story. Calvin was born and raised in Detroit. He had a good home and a good life, you know, nothing out of the ordinary bad. He's educated. I mean, he finished high school. He has a degree as a lab technician. He has a degree in accounting, and he's on his way to a bachelor's in corporate finance. And with Calvin, life dug him a hole. 8 years ago, he had a heart attack, and during that time, he had a very long recovery period, and because he couldn't work, he lost his job. He applied for Social Security payments, but he was denied the Social Security because he wasn't completely disabled. At the time, he was 51 years old, and really most companies out there now are not looking to hire a 51-year-old guy that just had a heart attack. So what ended up happening to him is that even with the degrees, he just couldn't get a job. So he tried finding some blue-collar jobs that he might be able to pick up, but they told him he was overqualified, so they wouldn't hire him. And so he was too old to get a job he wanted. He was too qualified to get the jobs that he would take if he could, and he was too young to retire. So there's really no options for him. So he basically just had nothing left, and he just ended up on the street. He couldn't get a job. He couldn't pay his bills. Eventually, he lost his home, and he was on the street. He ended up picking up some side work, and he did some subcontracting jobs, helping people with carpentry around their house, along with doing some roofing work. And then a few years ago, or I guess really a little over a year ago, when the economy really started to tank, all those jobs dried up because everybody else was losing their job and taking those jobs. So there was just nothing for him. About 2 years ago, his left leg started to give out on him. And he didn't know what was wrong with it, but he had no job, he had no medical insurance, and he had no option to even go to a doctor. So the problem is, it was not something that was completely debilitating, it was just inconvenient. So rather than figuring out how to get it checked out, he decided to live with it. Well, slowly it got worse and worse, and now basically he's living with a really heavy limp, and he walks around with a cane and a really tough limp, which pretty much is eliminating the chance for him to get any job now, because most jobs that he could potentially get require him to be mobile, and he's not mobile anymore. So Calvin stays at a day-to-day shelter, which basically means you stay somewhere overnight. The next morning you get your stuff, you get out, and eventually, later on in the day you come back at a certain time and you hope they have a bed. And if there is no bed, then what he would do is he would basically limp over to the next shelter and hope there's a bed. And some really cold nights there's nothing available, so he'll go to what's called a warming center, which is basically a warm room indoors with some chairs in it, and he would just sit and try to warm up. And if he couldn't find one of those, then who knows, he'd have to figure out what he was going to do. So I asked him, I said, what would it take to turn your life around? And he said, I have no idea. He said, there really doesn't seem to be a way out. He said that other than a stable job, there's nothing that he can do other than just give it to God, take it hour by hour, and figure out what he can do from one day to the next. As I was standing there talking to him, I mean, it was a cold day, and I remember my fingers and toes were getting numb and cold, and we'd only been out there for an hour, and it was pretty heartbreaking, thinking these guys are out here all day long, and a lot of them don't have, warm clothes or warm gloves or anything like that. But while I was out there and I was cold, it kind of reminded me to ask him the question that had always been on my mind. He said, why are you staying in Detroit? Why don't you get out of here? Go south. Go where it's warmer. If you have to be on the street, at least you're not going to freeze to death. And one of the things that he said was pretty eye-opening to me is he said, when you're born and raised in Detroit and you've been on the streets for a while, he said you start to realize where the shelters are. You know where you can go to get food. You know where you can go to get shelter. You know where you can go where people are going to be donating items and donating food. So he said if you somehow were able to manage the money to go get out of town and go somewhere, you'd be lucky. But then you'd also be in a situation where you have to go to the next town and figure out what you're going to do. Where are you going to stay? What are you going to do? Every town you stop in, you don't know where you can get food or where you can sleep. So it's kind of a daunting task to pick up from somewhere that you know and that you're comfortable with and go somewhere totally foreign to you. When I was taking those pictures and talking with Calvin, he had actually pointed out that the jacket he's wearing in those photos is actually a new jacket that he just got donated to him from one of the guys that had come down to one of Mike's barbecues. So it was the first time that he had a really nice warm jacket that he could wear, and he was hoping that he could get some new boots, because the boots that he was wearing had holes in them, which isn't very comfortable in the wintertime. So anyway, what I want to do, that's Calvin.